I'm Joel. I'm here with my buddy Trever. And Trever, you can tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do, where you work, and why are we here?
So I'm Trever Shirin. I'm a licensed professional counselor at Mayfield Counseling Centers. I'm also the director of content. And so Mayfield Counseling Centers has been in Colorado Springs since I think 2015, and we've been really geared towards helping our community where our community needs it. And one of the ways that we do that is through an online resource library of coping skills and podcasts and worksheets and skills on how to manage anxiety or what to do if you find out your teen is self-harming. And so that's mayfieldcollective.com. But we also do a lot of therapy. And so I'm kind of sitting in dual roles of content and counseling.
Okay. So the topic we're basically the title is what does your teenager want you to know about their anxiety? Mm-hmm. So this is basically going out to parents. So let's start there.
Yeah.
So with that question, any thoughts that you can give parents?
Yeah. So I think there's actually more in the question than in the answer, because when we're asking the question, what do our teens want us to know about their anxiety? It means that we should be asking them about that. And so often as parents, we can get caught up in not learning from our children or not listening the way we ought to, or listening as actively as we can. All of us do it, where the kid comes home and says, I'm upset about this thing, and it's like, well, deal with it. You gotta go clean your room, or you got this chore, or we've gotta run, or I don't have time for that. Like, that's normal life. Every relationship is impacted by that. But there's so much to being a parent who's willing to listen and listen quietly. So I would encourage reflective listening, which is repeating back some of the things you're hearing, not trying to give your own opinion or add your own content, but just reiterating what they're saying. So we're doing this article on teens with anxiety, and we want to explore what the parent should know. That sort of reflective listening is so important. And as we do that, it opens the door for our teens, especially, to start talking to us about the things that are going on in their lives. And if we're leaning into that relationship, there's a lot of skills, a lot of tools, a lot of practices that you can engage, but at the end of the day, that's step one, and the most important part is just to listen.
And we were just rock climbing, and I was a little anxious up there.
We met this morning.
We met this morning, and we're rock climbing. This is our meeting over here.
Yeah.
And it's if you let go of the rope, I'm in trouble. Yeah. And so this is I think it's a great therapeutic situation where I could have anxiety climbing, but then I could have the wow, look what I did. Yeah. So any thoughts on that, in a sense of how anxiety is an emotion and when it's a problem?
Yeah. So, I mean, I come from sort of an existential background, which is a theory of counseling, and part of it believes that we all have a level of anxiety that we live with day to day just because we exist. And I like to call it tension, because I think that we live in tensions and we grow in tensions. So, you're scared, but you want to get to the top of the rock. And so there's a tension there. And if we think about going to the gym or working our bodies, if we go to a gym and our muscles never feel tension, we're not doing anything there. And the same is true in life. And when it becomes a problem is when maybe we're paralyzed on the rock. The tension is too great. We don't know how to handle it. Or maybe we feel like we're disconnected from either end. Or realistically, it comes down to if it impairs our functioning. If we're not doing well at work or school, in our relationship, if it's interfering with those things or throwing us off balance, that's when it becomes a problem and we need to seek professional support. But I think also to the idea of gear on a wall, there's so much to be said about having support people in place, friends, family that you can go to when things are hard or scary, or to talk through things. Having professionals that are on your side to take care of your body, your spirit, your mind, all of it, just to maintain this holistic view of yourself, that it's all connected. We talked earlier today about just pieces of our jaw being connected to our neck, and the idea our bodies are connected to themselves. There's not like this separate entity within our body. It's all connected. And the more we realize that, the more we're able to look at how are we functioning in all of the areas of our life, and how are the parts that are struggling able to be supported by the ways we're doing well, and how are the ways that we're struggling impacting the ways we're doing well. anxiety is a big part of that, and if we're managing it well, we're going to be able to use some of the strength from that, because emotions are not good or bad. They are warning signals. A lot of the times when we're feeling anxious, there's typically a good reason. Maybe not necessarily in that present moment, right? So we might have anxieties that come from past traumas, or anxieties that come from fears that we haven't worked through. But a lot of the times it's going to be present. We're on the wall, I could fall, I could die. So I'm anxious, right? But as soon as we're able to recognize that and work through that, it makes me a better climber, because I'm going to make sure that when I'm climbing, I am using my skills to the best of my ability. I'm going to let that anxiety inform rather than deter and lower my functioning. And so I feel like most emotions are that way too. If we see them as friends and allies and warning signals, we start to learn how to operate better in life.
Cool. One last thing I want to talk about, and this is sleep.
Yeah.
And anxiety, and we can even specifically, because we're focusing on teenagers, kind of maybe focus on that group.
One of my best friends is a sleep tech, and we talk often about the connection between our roles, and it's kind of this thing of like, I'm going to constantly refer somebody to a sleep study if I see anything, and my friend would constantly refer for mental health. But there's this realization too of, if the sleep isn't there, there's maybe a limitation on the progress we can make in mental health, and vice versa. And so it's, again, that holistic perspective of like, we are a whole person, and all of the different areas of our life are connected in some way and impact each other. And so I will always ask my teenagers how they're sleeping and how they're eating, and typically I get really bad answers. I'm sleeping like 2 hours a night, or some nights I'll sleep like 13 hours, and then the next I won't sleep, or I'm not eating at all, or I'm eating one meal. And that's one of the first things that we'll focus on. One, because it's a habit that they need to start forming. It's a practice they need to start feeling comfortable with. And so starting off with that, so that we know 6 weeks down the line, we may have good sleep, or at least decent sleeping habits that are going to enforce the work we're doing. Because, I mean, I'm sure many of the practitioners know better than I do, but I do know that we grow and we develop in our sleep, not just mentally and emotionally, but physically. Like when you work out, you're not growing muscle as you're working out. The big process, the bulk of it, is happening while you're sleeping. So that circadian rhythm is really important as parents to be able to recognize because our bodies go through phases of when we want to sleep. Like there's the idea that old people are going to eat dinner at 4 o'clock and go to bed and wake up early or whatever, right? And some of that is because as our bodies age, the time in our circadian rhythm starts to change as well. And so there have been studies on high schools doing like a running program at 10 o'clock and having that be the start of the day. And the way that it changes success and academic achievement positively, because you're leaning into what the body needs. So like teenagers typically are not going to want to go to sleep until 11 or later. And many of the times we're trying to force them to go to bed, 8, 9 o'clock, but their bodies just aren't going to be tired most of the time, super generalized, right? But being able to recognize how much sleep a child needs in different ages. So my 3-month-old is going to need way more sleep than me, because that's what their body needs. And to recognize what rhythms are going to be helpful, what time should bedtime be, what time should wake up be for him throughout his life, is going to be a huge asset to all of that, and a point of struggle if I'm not paying attention, because I might be really frustrated that my kid's making a sandwich in the kitchen at 12 o'clock, and I'm like, go to bed. Like, you should have been three hours ago. What are you doing making a sandwich? But then if I'm realizing like, oh, their rhythm is that way, let's kind of adjust. Like maybe don't do food at midnight, but maybe you should like be reading or something. Like find some other way. But allowing that to be something that is true and something we're paying attention to, I think is a huge start. And again, a part of parenting, of listening and paying attention and realizing you don't always have all the answers, and that's okay, because you're not supposed to. And some of it is just listening to my kid saying, I'm never tired before midnight. Okay, so how can we get your morning routine so expedited that you're allowed to sleep in until such and such time, where you have 5 minutes to get ready, but I know you're ready.
Okay, and then part of that could be preparing better in the evening.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Like clothes and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So, okay. There's going to be resources. Mayfield Counseling is one of them. We have a lot of other, Summit Ministries has some cool stuff out there for parents and teenagers related to anxiety, camps and whatnot. Other counselors. So we're going to have a kind of a slew of resources that you can connect with as well. And this content is going to be shared in a lot of different ways. So, Trevor, I want to thank you for hanging out with me.
Yeah.
And we've got some more climbing to do.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks.